Kick the intro music off. Everybody a sound check. 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3, 3, 3, 3.
Okay, everybody can hear everybody?
Yeah.
All right, looks like we're operational. Well, guys, welcome aboard. I know we actually have a minute before we kick off, so sound check's out of the way. We're keeping it light tonight. I threw this together the last second just to give you the 411. I was able, through my daring do, to catch an early flight home today. Otherwise, I would literally just be pulling up to the driveway. Actually, I'd probably be pulling up the driveway right about now. Instead, the wife and I got a bunch of errands run, and tonight's her special TV show that I don't watch, and so we thought I thought about. I actually had shot a little video outside of Hobby Lobby where we went today. We'll talk about that in a little bit, and I was going to just throw together a little video. And when she said her favorite show was on, I was like, oh well, I'll hide my office. You mind if I do a live stream? She's like, no, you go for it. So we got about 90 minutes tonight, and. Here we are. I threw all this together at the last second. We have Steve and Ken on board as usual. Tonight we're going to go audio only and just try to keep it kind of simple. Real quick, I want to start off with this. I can hear the cat. Now that we started, the cat hasn't made a noise all night, and now I can hear outside the door screaming for attention. Because I'm locked in here, and Mom's locked in the other room watching TV, and she's like, what? I'm all alone.
Where are my people?
Where are my people? Okay, let me let her in. You want to come in, Pumpkin? You want to come in and rummage around behind the boxes? She loves getting behind the kit model boxes and stash. No?
I don't see any video.
No, I'm not doing video at the moment. I will in a little bit. Because this episode is Livestream 90 is dedicated to Ricou Browning, and I don't know if it's Ricou or Ricou. But Ricou, okay. Ricou Browning. Now, he passed away recently. He's a Florida native. And in fact, Ken, he lived down near you.
From your hometown.
Yeah,
he was. Pierce.
And he was from Fort Pierce, and he passed away down in, what do they call that? The Western Ranches or Eastern Ranches down there by Pembroke Pines, where you also used to live. So, native Florida boy, a dive expert. He played the creature in the underwater scenes. They had a different actor that played him on the land scenes. And he, let me see if I can get this picture a little bigger.
Anytime is max time. Did you know they used to call Florida God's waiting room?
They still do, Ken.
They still do.
Particularly West Palm and Fort Myers. When I was flying a 19-seat turboprop into West Palm, I heard one of our captains called in range for 14 wheelchairs.
Yeah.
They call them
19-seat plane.
Yep, they call them Sarasota. They call them Sarasota sports cars.
When I used to fly to Florida from New York area, there would be so many people with wheelchairs that would have to be assisted to get on the plane. I used to tell the flight attendants, why don't you just rip out some of the seats and just put in like coffins?
Oh, by the way, Steve, I was thinking of you the night we were whipping around through New York. And Captain Tangent here is going to run off on a tangent just a quick second. We're leaving the hotel in the morning. And I asked the guy, I said, it was a little drizzly out, a little cold, and these guys, as we're pulling out, are walking out in front of the car and trying to flag the guy down. And there's clusters of them. I said, what is going on here? He says, they're hustlers for maintenance for garages because around the corner was a row of garages. And apparently these guys go out and hustle. They think everybody's driving down that street needs a car worked on. So they're out there trying to flag you into coming into their garage. And they were like carnival barkers.
Yeah, where they disassemble your car and sell the parts.
Yeah, that's what I figured. Anyway, so
say your car was stolen, huh?
I'm sorry, did you say it was Ricou Browning?
Yes.
Ricou Browning. He passed away at 93 just very recently, and he did all the underwater work. You see him in the picture when he's young there with the mask and everything. He did up for the original Creature from the Black Lagoon and its two sequels. And I did a quick read on his bio on Wiki, and apparently he was, obviously a marine underwater expert. who did a lot of movies, including a lot of Bond flicks, and he was heavily involved with the TV show Flipper, including writing it. So he actually had a pretty impressive resume.
He was the creator of Flipper. It was his idea.
That doesn't surprise me. And his son is doing his father's footsteps and is doing underwater, camera work and everything. So, but the reason I thought that was so relevant to this channel, not only because, a lot of us are old, movie buffs and everything, but because, as you see by my little montage, just about everybody and their brother has made the creature from the Black Lagoon. And he really did a lot of work to create this and, help bring this incredibly iconic character to life. And although he couldn't do some of the things underwater, because I imagine he had to have a regulator in his mouth or air hose or something.
That was one of the reasons why they used him. He could hold his breath in excess of 5 minutes underwater.
Jesus, that's not even safe.
So what they used to do is they would throw him in the water, and which he said the suit was incredibly restrictive on land, but once you got in the water, he said it was almost like skin. And what they would do is they would have divers off camera with hoses and air tanks.
Okay.
And so he'd do what they could do, and then they'd rush over and they'd stick an air hose in his mouth, and then he'd get some more air, and then he'd go back and do, the next scene. He was a pretty interesting guy. He did all of the underwater choreographing for the underwater scenes in Thunderball.
Yeah, they mentioned he did several Bond movies, including Thunderball.
He did all the underwater work for Bond. I met him at a Killer Theater, and he was quite an interesting guy. And he did the underwater scenes, and a fellow named Ben Chapman did the out of water scenes.
Right, and where he could emote and everything, and
right.
And when you think about it, for a movie made in '54. That suit's actually pretty impressive. That wasn't some cheesy thing they threw together like you saw in some of the cheap sci-fi. I mean, they put a lot of work, and the suit actually makes anatomical sense.
There was a big controversy about the suit.
Really?
Yeah, because the suit was actually designed by a woman.
Okay.
And the guy who was the makeup director for the Universal, he took credit for it. And he did not design the suit, she did.
Huh. Wait a minute. Whoa. Back up the truck here, Steve. Are you implying that someone in Hollywood would take undue credit and take advantage of somebody? I'm sorry. I have too much respect for our overlords in Hollywood ever. I can't even say that with a straight face.
When they got out of the movie business, they went in the custom car business.
Needham, actually, I think the record is 16 minutes, according to the Guinness Book of World Records, for holding the breath. But the guy was super trained. He had used some kind of gas to help oxygenate his blood, and they said it was 12 minutes. And they said that kind of record setting is exceedingly dangerous. That
guy was just hanging out. This guy was moving around.
Yeah, that's right. And but that's probably why I'm going to guess he didn't smoke.
I would guess not.
Which is probably why he lived. One of the reasons he lived to be 93. But a very impressive individual. And, it's one of those people whose name, well, someone like Steve, of course, knows who he was, but a lot of us, the super fans know, but a lot of us average, mooks, muggles, don't know yet. He's the kind of guy who really brought the stuff to life that affected our lives in a lot of ways. Somebody was just mentioning earlier, Slugo was talking about his first kit was the Aurora Frankenstein in '65, which is the year it came out, I believe. And that's, these creatures got a lot of guys into modeling who might not have been otherwise.
Yeah. And other things. I mean, I'll give you an example. The creature from the Black Lagoon is probably my son's favorite creature, next to Godzilla. Mm-hmm. And he became a diver, and he dies. Well, I got him an autographed picture from Ricou as the creature, which that is one of his most prized possessions.
I'll bet it is. That's like
he thought so much. Every time that movie's on, he's got to watch it.
Okay, just me being me and me loving to do crossover movies ideas. What if you made the creature of the Black Lagoon, people make contact with it, combine it with a Godzilla, and they're able to communicate with the creature, and the creature can communicate with Godzilla?
That would be great.
I would watch that movie, but then, of course, I'm weird. But,
I got a question for you. Actually, it's Chris's. Didn't they film the creature in the Florida Keys? I thought it was in Ocala.
Wakala.
They did. They did. They flew it. They did it in a park that had water, and they did some scenes at Silver Springs.
Okay, with Silver Springs. I'm
okay.
sorry. It was the Tarzan movies that they did at Wakala Springs because the water's so clear.
Yeah.
Some of the early films.
If you go on YouTube, there's a video about the places that they filmed the creature from the Black Lagoon.
Okay.
In Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
just as a side tangent, there's still some chimpanzees running around down there in Ocala that got loose during the Tarzan filmings.
Wakala or Ocala? I think it was Wakala Springs.
I'm Ocala.
Well, Wakala's in the Panhandle. Ocala is more central, but
no, Ocala's in the middle.
Yeah, I was thinking it was Wakala.
It's near the villages.
Yeah. Well, I know they did some of the stuff in Wakala, but I think it was just the underwater footage with the alligators and stuff. But Weissmuller was a champion swimmer, which is one of the reasons he made such a good Tarzan. But anyway, I thought it would be only appropriate, given that Ricou had so much impact on creating a creature that was my understanding is the creature in the Black Lagoon is like considered one of the top 3 or 4 of the classic Hollywood monsters, depending on who, let me say creatures. We call them monsters, but you think about it, with the exception of maybe the Mummy and Dracula, a lot of them are just creatures that were just misunderstood or whatever. I mean, the Wolfman
doing their own thing.
Yeah, the Wolfman didn't want to get bit. You could say the Invisible Man because he took the potion, kind of a mad doctor thing. But the Wolfman didn't ask to be bitten. Frankenstein never asked, and Frankenstein's monster never asked to be built. Nope. Godzilla didn't ask to be nuked. King Kong was abducted. He's a kidnap victim. Amber Alert. 50-foot ape.
Well, the creature was the last quote-unquote creature made by Universal.
Okay.
They never did another, creature that was created.
That's surprising because it was incredibly successful. I mean, they made 2 sequels.
Although the sequels, the second one was okay, the third one was really bad.
Okay, I think I've only seen the first one.
The third one is when they decide to change him and make him an air breather.
Oh, okay. By the way,
and
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No.
No, I was going to Slugo was saying he's a big vampire fan, but not Bela Lugosi. It's funny you should mention that. I saw an interview with Bela Lugosi. He's an interesting guy. And if I remember correctly, he was like a Hungarian cavalry officer in the First World War or something like that. Got injured.
Yes, he did.
And he has and I listened to him talk about, politics and stuff. He was an interesting guy. I mean, he had his demons, but Frank...
He was quite an accomplished performer over in Hungary.
Yes, he was.
Needham Bass said King Kong was just minding his own business, not the first to fall for a blonde.
Wait, hey, listen. On the drive down here, back up from the airport, I was listening to some country song about the one where he's talking about he takes the girl out in the tank top, goes across the hood, how this girl, he keeps getting in trouble trying to impress his girlfriend. He goes over the hood like Bo Duke, and it was a song is I know what I was doing, but what was I thinking? And I was like, exactly. Kong is by no means the first guy to fall to the charms of a girl. But anyway, but I wanted to bring that up.
Creature, the same thing.
So, Creature's the same thing. That's right.
Yeah. I mean, he basically stalked her from underwater before he abducted her.
So he's the first stalker.
Yeah.
But hey, you know what though? It just goes to show you the wisdom of Baloo in Jungle Book at the end when Mowgli sees the girl from the village. Stay away from them, boy. They ain't nothing but trouble.
Yeah, you got that right.
Well, anyway, I just wanted to chat about that for a second. I knew Steve would know about it, and it's sad. I mean, but 93. That's a good run. I mean, an impressive guy to say the least.
Meanwhile, well, just a footnote here. Atlantis is re-releasing the Creature Kit a little bit later in the year.
Oh, good.
And Super 7, who makes the small figures, they have a limited run of the Creature Kit that's clear that comes with internal organs.
That would be interesting to see. I did not realize, if you guys look down at the bottom center, I did not realize that Revell also made a creature from the Black Lagoon kit. Or at least it's got the Revell logo on it. I don't know.
So it's a visible creature?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, they're doing a bunch of those. I want to get the Godzilla one. Well, anyway, guys, here I am. You can see my smiling face now. And so a couple of things to talk about tonight that I just cobbled together at the last second. And for one thing, I guess we'll start off with is the TARDIS. This photo, actually, they've got some of the ceiling in now. Just give you guys a quick look. They're making some progress with it. And it's going to be quite a while before it's done. And then we got to get the floor in after that. But forward progress is being made. And Steve, you were talking about Atlantis. I went to Hobby Lobby, as I mentioned earlier, and I saw some of Atlantis's latest repops up on the shelf that I had not seen at Hobby Lobby before. I hadn't seen that B-52 at the X-15. I hadn't seen the U.S. space missiles and part of their, I think it's smaller called STEM series. I don't think I'd seen the B-29 there, and I think Pete had said something about when I talked to him a couple of years ago, he said he was going to get the thing, the mold polished and everything. So I guess they finally got that done.
Yeah, and they still have the Allison in there and the gas truck.
Yeah, I saw the Allison. I didn't see the gas trucks. One other thing that I saw while I was there, which is just from a nostalgia point of view, was kind of nice. Was here, and there's the B-29. The next one up is the F-84 with the monogram logo on the box, even though we all know it's actually Revell. But there it is, the Republic F-84F. I was happy to see that they oops. Oh, okay, that's how that works. I was happy to see that they, use the monogram logo, even though monogram's not really a thing anymore. I guess it's just one of their old molds. But I was like, I think the Mark IV Panzer I have back here still has a monogram logo on the box. Not quite sure why they do that, but I like it. Probably because, geezers like me that built the kit before will grab another one. Well, anywho. That was nice to see.
Ron said if you spray the TARDIS carefully with the right camouflage, nobody will know it's there.
Yeah. So, by the way, I swung by I actually got a call from Ian today at Hurricane Hobbies, and he said, if you want to see a really cool model, Brett, the master modeler who has some of his models on display there, dropped off his A10. And so I went to look at it, and not only is this a beautiful build, but I want to point something out. And I don't know how he did it, and I got some close-ups coming here. But the windshield, the forward canopy, I don't know about the bubble, and the HUD. Apparently, he's some kind of a chemist or something. He makes like super iridium power cells for flux capacitors for some unnamed agency.
Is his name Brown?
Yeah, apparently he's one lab accident away from being a supervillain. But anyway, he's that kind of scary smart. But he had a chemical process that he did to the windshield and the HUD that gave it this like iridium gold tint that the A10 actually has, and the camera had trouble picking it up. But it when you see it in person, like, that is some beautiful work. I mean, just a canopy. How did he do that? And of course, it's probably some secret formula, but Anyway, nice touch.
Probably floor wax.
Apparently, it was some kind of a chemical wash that he put it through, and I was like, okay, you are way that picture kind of shows it a little better, but you are way ahead of me, dude. If you guys are in the area swinging by Hurricane Hobbies, it's worth a peek. I think you'll get a tickle out of it, and does real nice work, very meticulous, and which is why you'll never see any of my models on display there. But anywho, that was kind of a neat thing. Also, for all the World War I model airplane builders out there, our crew room in our mothership, it has a propeller from an American SE-5 on display. It's a post-war SE-5, I think built in 1919. And I thought you guys just might like a couple of pictures of it because you can see how the thing, even though it's 100 years old, you can sort of see how, the little waves on the metal tips and everything, and just some of the detail on it. I thought some of you guys might like to take a peek at how it's laminated and everything. I had no idea they put that much work in those old propellers. But just to give you, a color palette and some of the texture, some of the stuff. And I guess it was something like a primitive fiberglassing that they did over it. But apparently that's a metal leading edge on each blade with this like wavy cut in it. And that would look real good in my living room.
Well, they got Charles Lindbergh's propeller hanging up there in that store on, what's the name of that pawn shop? The one in Las Vegas, the one on TV.
Gold Star Pawn or whatever it is.
Pawn Stars.
Well, that was a show.
Yeah, but they got Charles Lindbergh's propeller hanging up in their shop.
Maybe.
So they claim.
What?
Okay.
So they claim.
Well, anyway, that's really all the prepared stuff I had. But I thought something that might be kind of cool to talk about tonight, since we got all the stuff up here, are the impact of the these old kits on the movies and everything. Mostly the monster kits. I know they're still very popular today, and just about everybody's gotten in the game at some level. I mean, what's the name of that company that's making the clear ones?
Clear what?
The clear monsters with the innards.
Oh, that Atlantis made that.
No. You were talking about the company.
Super 7.
Super 7. I mean, here's a company that's relatively new, as I understand it, and they're still making these things. The properties, something that's cool tends to stay cool, like blue jeans. And I just think it's awesome, this stuff. On the drive up here to entertain myself, I was listening to the because I just put YouTube on my phone on the speaker, and so I was listening to the soundtrack from the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and most of that music was written by one or two guys, and it's really good music, and I was thinking about back in the 70s when I went to the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and I was thinking about Model Citizens, how we could make some spoofs off of that in the United Comments, but I was like, a lot of this humor, I don't want to say it's uniquely American, because the Rocky Horror Show or the Rocky Horror Picture Show, depending on where you saw it, was popular in other countries as well. But here in the U.S., we tend to, and it was actually shot in England, but we tend to think
shot in England.
Yeah, but we tend to, and which, for some reason, maybe Americans were just America-centric. We tend to, think, this is an American thing. But I was just thinking that it just of course, it carries you back to the 70s. And there are characters in that show that have been made, I think, as kits by some, off companies. I don't think any mainline, mainstream companies did it. But I was, as they were playing the opening soundtrack, I was thinking about, Flash Gordon was there in silver underwear, Claude Rains is the Invisible Man, and I started counting how many of these creatures, and they talked about that there are kit models made of. And most of them, I don't think they have one of Dana Andrews from that movie. I forget the name of the movie that they referenced, but he said prunes give him the runes, and passing them use lots of skills. And what was the name of that movie? Crap. Yeah, I actually haven't seen it, but I saw a clip of it. Like the trailer.
Night of the Demon.
Night of the Demon. I don't know of any kits from that, but almost everything else, Anne Francis, they mentioned Forbidden Planet. Well, they make the C-57D and Robbie the Robot, so that's covered. Although it was an off-brand company, Jeanette Scott really looked hot, avoiding the Triffids that spits poison and kills. So I've seen models of the Triffids made. Oh no, not Meatloaf again. Oh, they're talking about, in the back row, everybody's down, don't you? And I started thinking about all the crap, damn it, Janet, you beat the other girls with whips and chains to the bride's bouquet. And I started going through all, and I'm like, oh my God, I haven't heard some of these songs in 10 years, 15 years.
Here's
and I can remember the lyrics.
Really cool.
Huh?
Here's how you can tell somebody's really cool. If their name is Brad, you walk up to them and say, "How's Janet?"
Yes. And that'd be fun to pull on Barry Bostwick when he has a snoot full. But I had thought about trying to make a video by building all models of all of the characters and the things they mentioned in that song, and then use that as a photo montage. And that might make an interesting group build, but you would have to assign people a project. Like, someone's got to make the C-57D or the Roby the Robot. Somebody's got to make the Frankenstein. Somebody's got to make the Bride of Frankenstein. Somebody's got to make the, all the creatures that are mentioned. And, one person had to make all, and then send the photos in, and then we could photo montage them together. And that might be, down the road at some point, some kind of viewers. You were talking about you want to do a group build. That might be a group build, but folks would have to tell me which one they're going to make so I could, and...
that would be the Halloween group build.
Hold on. Ink, pen, paper. I'm just going to... You guys talk. I'm going to write this down. That is a great idea. I don't know if we can pull it off, but Halloween group build, assign characters from Rocky Horror Picture Show main theme. Steve, I like that idea. See, this is why I don't monetize the channel. I don't have to worry about him saying, "I'm sorry if you use copyrighted material." You are not. Most of my videos are not eligible for monetization. Ha ha ha! But I do this for the fun of it. Let's see. We'll have to go through the list and see. We're going to need Day There Stood Still, so we're going to need Klaatu or his spaceship. We're gonna. We'll get into that later. And,
Nobody made a model of that.
Huh?
Nobody never made a model of that.
I think there's some off-brands. Some garage.
The ship or Klaatu. I mean, they had statues of Klaatu, but I never remember a model of Klaatu. Or Gord either. Gord is who you want.
That'd work. I'd love to get. But. Oh, by the way, one other idea I had, I need to write that also. At some point, for a group build, we might do a box art build where build the model and pose it like it is on the box art, or try to make a diorama of what's on the box art. And then when you send me the picture, I'll Photoshop it and make a box art out of it.
There you go.
All I have to do is obtain and learn how to use Photoshop. We're gonna have lots of fun with that kind of stuff. But the thing is, it gets back to the impact of sci-fi when you think that there was this musical comedy that was made about the subject matter. I mean, I guess I would call that meta. How meta?
Ooh.
And
Steve Mercer just said something interesting. He said somebody has just brought out a new kit of the Chariot from Lost in Space.
Oh.
Yep, it's a different scale.
Oh.
I didn't know that anybody had ever done one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's been around a long time.
It's been done. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And in fact,
Yep.
Spine Scale Modeler did an article on it a few years ago, the new one that they put out, which apparently got rave reviews. I forget who made it, but it might have been Mobius. And because Mobius made everything cool. When I think, Mobius had all original molds. I mean, they cut all their own stuff. I don't think they repopped anything by anybody else. And they did the late model Battlestar Galactica stuff and everything. And I never got a chance to meet Steve Winspur, who started the company, but he did sell out a while back. I don't know if he wanted to retire or what. And I was thinking, man, that was a lot of work to get all that stuff into production. And so now, did round 2 get them? I forget. But anyway, at least the kits are still around. But I saw some of the stuff on a video when he was at one of the trade shows, and I was like, man, I want everything on that shelf. Okay, Garvitz of Mobius did a 124 scale. Now they have a 135 scale. All right, that makes sense. Yeah, there is a resin Gort available. I knew I'd seen models of Gort. I'm surprised that the mainline companies, or that's something that the boys at Atlantis could probably get. I don't even know if you'd need the rights to it, but if you get it, Gort would be a pretty easy mold to cut. He's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward.
And
you know that whoever played Gort was sewn into it from the back?
I think I read that somewhere.
That's why you never see the back of him, because it laced up like sneakers.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? I did, because they did a thing on the guy who played him. I found some obscure YouTube video, and the guy was an actor who always got these tall monster roles, and he sadly didn't live to be very old, as people who are abnormally tall often don't. And I think they showed some pictures of him in a half suit also for some of the footage. And
I read that Klaatu, they had 2 suits for him too. One for looking from the back, and another one for looking from the front.
That makes sense. And also, if I'm not mistaken, the reason he walked so stilted as Gort was because that was the only way he could move in that suit.
Yeah, because it was pretty stiff.
Yeah.
It was really rubber. It was like hard rubber.
Well, they had the same problem with the first Godzilla suit, to the point they wound up cutting it in half and only using the lower half. The guy couldn't even fall over, and it took 4 people to get him up, so they had to remake the entire suit.
And he'd also lose about 35 pounds every time.
Oh God, yeah, Haruo Nakajima. Yeah, that was. I mean, they recently made that coffee company made a commercial about him in the costume, and we actually talked about it a while back. I think I linked it on the channel, but I was like, when they're making films about making the suit, or commercials that reference the actor who played that tells you a lot when they get that far into the weeds on something like that, because it's it becomes the stuff of legend. And when these guys are making these movies, there can be no way that they thought these things were ever going to be as big as they were.
No, they never did. It just came to me. Millicent Patrick was who designed the creature.
Okay. And someone else is ready to take the credit for it, because that's what they do in Hollywood.
Yep.
By the way, I think I told you I did not get cast for the TV commercial for people with interesting hobbies nearing retirement. I was contacted before I even did an audition or anything. They said that they I don't even think they used that casting company. They said they'd already cast it, but thanks for the application. Okay. It was fun. Fun to think about. Nice to be asked.
We'll show them.
Yeah, we'll make YouTube videos. We'll make them jealous. By the way, I know a lot of the guys up in Canada being clobbered by the snow. I just did my first Denver turn out of LaGuardia. That was fun. Boy, it was wicked when we came back in. The snappy crosswinds. I was like, I had to fight that thing all the way down. And but managed to keep it on the runway, and we can reuse the airplane, so take the wind. But we flew out. We had a nice ride out, but I got some pictures. We went over Canada, and I mean, because you go through Canadian airspace, and they send you the northern route from New York to Colorado. And people forget. I mean, obviously, folks who live near the border know this, but some folks forget that there are parts of America that stick up into Canada and parts of Canada that stick down in the United States, or you know what I mean. You know, the border's very up and down. And we wound up with Toronto Centre for a while. And it was a nice ride going down. But the way back, and Denver was nice, but we got about 30 minutes out of Denver, and we just got beat up all the way back. Then we caught a smooth patch of descent, and then we got beat up again on the approach to land. I was like, man. And the Airbus rides it better than my old airplane did, to be sure, because it's heavier and everything. But it was both a beautiful and crappy night to fly. But a lot of guys were talking about the snow and everything, and we could see it out there, and I was like, good Lord. Living in Florida, you tend to forget they still have snow in certain parts.
I've seen pretty pictures.
Ken's from up north, but he don't like the cold.
No. It's pretty to look at. Hate shoveling it. Do not like driving in it.
Chris was asking, does their copyright laws make them use Universal monsters? No, Universal created the monsters. I know that when they first, in 65, when they did these monsters originally, it had all fallen out of copyright, so they didn't pay anything to anybody. And apparently the models, the Aurora models, were so popular that somebody finally got the idea that maybe we should reinstitute our rights on these things. And I think I don't know if there's...
the licensing fees are still in place.
Yeah, okay. So they put them back in place, and heard there's copyright stuff for Chuck Yeager. I'm sure there is. Public people give up a certain amount of claim, but they also hold a great deal of sway over how it gets confusing. I mean, there are lawyers who specialize in this stuff, and what?
That's why you see Godzilla kits come and then go away and then come, because Toho only gives short licensing periods.
Well, you just make a whole bunch of them.
Sure, because you want to come back with the kit and your license is expired, you got to go back and renegotiate a whole new license to introduce the kit. Now, that's why the Metaluna Mutant was able to be released, because there was no copyright on it that was in place.
Unfortunately, there are people out there who have learned this, and some of them have absolutely nothing to do with the creation of the original creature, but they find out it's out of license and they go put a claim on it. They go and license it. What's his name? That John Oliver did an entire episode of his show dedicated to this company in Texas. All they do is run around looking for things they can lay claim to that's in the public domain. And anybody tries, well, you got to give us $5,000, that kind of stuff. And it's an ugly little business.
In 2020, at Toy Show in New York, the guys from Boeing came into the Atlantis booth and looked at everything there that was Boeing or was a company that Boeing purchased and said, you guys owe us money. And you can't sell these anymore unless you get licenses from us.
Were they that hard up for money?
No, that's just pure pure avarice.
No, but they just, it's their property and they feel they're owed a cut.
Well, let me tell you what. I'm going to say nay to that, and I'll tell you why. The saying it, we invented the airplane. Yeah, back in 1957, you didn't put a claim on it. Okay, now to out of the blue put a claim, because all the stuff Atlantis makes is aircraft that are no longer in production.
Right.
Now to come back retroactively and say that now we're going to put a claim on something that we haven't made in 30 years. That dog ain't going to hunt. And,
well, that's not necessarily true, because the companies that made those kits before had to pay the royalties for the license. So the fact that you acquired the mold and then came out with the kit under another company's name, you still have to pay them a license.
I think a lawyer could make a case that since the airplane and the model both were out of production for so long, because there's an expiration date on these things.
It's cheaper to pay the license than it is to pay the lawyers.
Well, if they're saying that the license fee is a few $100 or even a couple of grand or 50 cents a kit, yeah. But if they're saying
it's a percentage. It's small money up front, and then it's a percentage on every one that you sell.
Well, that's not too terrible.
The thing that made the Boeing thing bad was they wanted it retroactively to the first kit that was sold.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Yeah, well, we've made over 100 of these things.
Well, it ain't that easy, but they got it, and that's why you're noticing there's more and more Boeing kits in the line.
That makes sense
because they have the license.
The other problem they run into with this kind of stuff is you've got companies like Lockheed that are doing it on companies and aircraft that go back to World War II that they didn't make.
Boeing was the same.
No. But Lockheed never made them.
Right.
Well, they're saying, Consolidated became Convair in the 50s, and Convair got bought up by General Dynamics. And so we have the rights. And I'm like, if I was a judge, I was going to say, sorry, dude, that, Going back to 1941, nay. And you ain't consolidated aircraft, You never built the B-24 or B-17. Well, Boeing did build the B-17.
But unfortunately, like I said, it's cheaper to pay it than it is to go to court.
But,
it's really not a lot of money in terms of what you pay them.
Well, they can't be. A company like Boeing or Lockheed cannot be doing it for the money because there isn't enough money to pay what they're paying the lawyers to go visit the place.
No, but they have guys that go around, and that's all that they do, that work for Boeing.
Nice job.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord.
Good work if you can get it.
Yeah.
I think it's ridiculous, but anyway, that's one person's opinion.
Going to toy stores, toy conventions, and harassing people that don't have a whole lot of money.
This is the kid that used to push the little kids off the swing.
Come on, Ken, that's America.
Hell yeah. But anyway, but I wonder if you made the model but didn't use their name, make a few insignificant alterations to it.
If you made some insignificant alterations and didn't call it the same plane, the same number, whatever, and like Revell did with the space alien invader that was the space shuttle. Same kind of thing. If you took a model of a B-29 and you put atomic bomber on it.
Mm-hmm. Now there is one thing that I should point out. A company that makes something on a government contract, if I understand it correctly, they can't do that with military aircraft because they're paid for with tax dollars. So they're public domain. NASA doesn't hold anything NASA makes goes in, they discover by law has to go into the public domain. So, because it's done with tax dollars. They cannot use tax dollars to develop something, then turn around and try to charge people for the rights to it. Now, that means that if you get a NASA contract to develop something, you develop it, you're not actually the intellectual property owner. Now, that's not the same as if NASA buys something from you that you invented. If you invent a superior widget and they want them, you still own all the rights. But if they contract you to develop it and pay you with tax dollars, it's public domain. That is my understanding.
Well, I'll give you a perfect example. There are several cars, both race cars and street cars, that were made in the early 60s by Revell. They were Chrysler based. They have the molds. They don't have the license. Therefore, they can't bring those cars to the market.
Right.
Even though they were made in the 60s.
But those were private sector properties. They weren't done with public dollars.
Well, here's the problem. The problem is that Chrysler's been owned by at least 4 different people since the 60s.
True. Damn
Okay?
Chrysler.
So you go and negotiate with one, and then somebody else buys them. Then you have to go negotiate with those people because everything that you did with the person before is null and void because they no longer own it. It's a slippery slope. And it's never simple.
No.
It's never, oh, okay, you have the right to make anything, boom. In the old days, the companies paid the model kit companies to make these models.
Yeah.
They contributed to the mold cost, to the packaging cost, because they wanted it out there in the public's hands. Now it's like, no, we don't care. It's a profit center.
In fact, John Hanley was paid $250,000
to make the turbine car.
Make the turbine car mold. That's right.
Yep.
And
I mean, Ken's familiar with this. I mean, one of the best-selling Lionel engines is the Santa Fe F3. Now, the F3 was made by General Motors. General Motors paid for the mold to make the bodies.
Not exactly General Motors. It's a subsidiary of General Motors.
Well, Electromotive Division, which was owned by General Motors.
Right.
Thank you, James May. Somebody's got to do it. Continue.
Well, yeah, guess what, Ken? You just got your name for the trio when we make Model Citizens and pattern it after Top Gear. Actually, I want to pattern after the Red Green Show, but anyway. But, licensing has kept a lot of models out of the hands of a lot of model builders that could have, I'm sure that, we would have loved to have seen. And I don't know about the Flash Gordon stuff, but then again, which Flash Gordon also. But,
which is true, yeah.
I watched the one, the one they made was in the 80s with Brian Blessed and Max von Sydow. And the first time I saw that, I was like, I couldn't figure out if they were trying to do a 1930s serial or if they were trying to parody a 1930s serial.
Yeah. But meanwhile, that movie has a resurgence.
Yeah.
It's got a resurgence in a cult following now after all these years. Well, I mean, it was and didn't do that well when it first came out. And now it's like sort of a hot property.
Well, it's funny because when I was, like I said, on the drive listening to the Rocky Horror soundtrack, got me thinking about the old sci-fi movies and, science fiction double feature. And it's like, I watch all this stuff in reruns because I was born in 61. But, so I saw it on television. But I remember going to the movies and seeing API film, or AIP, American AIP films and Hammer films and stuff and having double features. And I was like, I think, Steve, you're the one that pointed out that you give the kid 45 cents, $1. And he was gone for the afternoon because he goes see 2 movies, buy a candy bar, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And it was great. And I feel like all of us watching right now, how many are on board right now?
93.
Oh, 93.
That's great. I thought we'd have about 30 since I threw this thing together at the last second. By the way, guys, thanks for coming out. I really appreciate it. But
somebody got confused. They thought it was Friday night.
It is Friday night, but we normally do this on Saturday. But I'm going to be gone, so I figured, But the point I was going to get at was that I think if you're watching right now, most likely you're over 40 and probably went to theaters on your bicycle, watched movies, saw, built the Aurora, the old monster kits and jets and planes and tanks and all that other great stuff. I really think we grew up in a golden era, the post World War II, where all this stuff was available. And the science fiction, as cheesy as some of it was still inspirational to a lot of us. And I just think between a lot of the cool shows we had at the time and everything, and the cool toys and the cool models and the childhood freedom, I remember going to school riding the back of a pickup truck. Now you go to jail for doing that. We all did it. We skinned our knees falling off of bicycles. We drank out of water hoses. I mean, we lived hard. and it was fun. And
dangerously. I remember during the summer, our parents were working, and they left us at home all day long to do whatever we wanted.
that's how I got some of these scars, And
Same here.
people are like, who gave you that scar? I'm like, gave it to me. I worked for that. I went through a glass door to get these scars. I had to bleed. My mom's carpet was drenched in baby blood. But I just... I'll bet everybody watching this at some point in their childhood was on a swing set that usually never had more than 2 or 3 feet on the ground at any one time.
What about when you used to get it up as high as you could go and jump off?
Oh yeah, man, we were paratroopers in training.
I did that.
There are pictures of that on the internet all over there. I'm like free range. We all learned physics from that carousel thing, that we'd all jump on. You go around, and you try to get so fast that you couldn't hang on. The first kid to go fly off from centripetal force is the loser, whatever he flew into. It's like...
You want to talk about stuff we did in the 50s? I'll tell you the funniest true story ever. When I was a kid, and it was Halloween, my aunt and uncle and cousin lived in Providence, Rhode Island, and I lived in Manhattan. So we used to go up there for Halloween because you couldn't trick or treat in Manhattan.
Yeah.
So we would go up there, and they lived in a typical 3-story salt box New England house. And behind the house, like a bit level below, were a row of 1-car garages with a little concrete pad. So this is the late 50s. We're all standing around.
I remember this story. Folks, this does not end well for somebody.
With our Halloween costumes on, and the kid who lived up on the top floor, who was about 5'6", he had a Superman costume on because Superman was the show for kids in the late 50s. And he says, I wish I really had the ability to fly like Superman. He says, and his sister, who was like 14, said, well, yeah, you can fly. You have the costume. And he goes, I can? She goes, yeah, let's show everybody. They go in the house. A couple of minutes later,
could not end well.
The window opens on the 3rd floor. An arm comes out. She's holding him by the back of the costume and drops him. And we're standing there, and luckily he kind of falls away from the house. He misses the garages, but hits square on the concrete pad in front of the garages. Now, we're all little kids. We know this is not good, okay?
Yeah, even as chillins, we could figure...
We're just looking like, what? And all of a sudden, he just kind of, rocks up and sits up and does some such. I guess it didn't work. And I never forgotten that to this day. I mean, he probably was Superman,
Well, when you're a little kid, you're a lot more durable.
That's why children have rubbery bones.
But that was, you talk about stuff we did or that was done that was, it wasn't like today,
Shooting each other with pellet guns and BB guns and, everybody had lawn darts and all that stuff. So, bikes with no helmets. Yeah, we're in shorts and flip-flops right now. I remember sisters riding in their flip-flops, bicycles, exposed chains and everything.
We had 2 brothers, and they got one of those bow and arrow sets with the suction cups on the end of the arrows. And
we had those when I was a kid.
Yeah, one said to the other, "Let's play William Tell." He says, "I'll put let me put an apple on your head, and I'll shoot it off." And he goes, "Yeah, sure." So they took the tip off of the arrow, and he shot his eye out, just like Ralphie, was gonna. Oh yeah.
Oh
it
Lord.
was ridiculous.
Darwinism, baby. By the way, somebody's talking about parachutes off the roof. I was smart enough to know, because I'd watch the skydivers, there was not enough room for a parachute to inflate off the roof. I went with my home-built hang glider.
No. See, well, this reminds me, as we talk of this, of the Saturday Night Live, episode where Jane Curtin is interviewing Dan Aykroyd, who plays Erwin Mainway of the Mainway Toy Company.
The bag of glass. The kids love this.
Johnny Bag of Glass. It's a science toy. It's got prisms and lights and things. And I'm saying to myself, I worked for guys like this.
Mm. Somebody just mentioned shooting bottle rockets at each other. I have 8mm footage of us shooting bottle rockets at each other.
So you got proof, huh?
And we were teenagers then.
Let me run the tape.
I got to see if I can find that somewhere. I might have had that transferred to DVD. Oh man, yeah, I had a movie. Jumping out of a tree with a parachute harness and a rope, trying to imitate the parachute training, and the friggin' branch broke, and I splattered my ass all over the place. And the leaves come flying. My God, I was 16 when I did that, and that was shown at the school. Man, I was just, Mainway Toys was great. Johnny Switchblade when SNL was actually funny. And
yes, they actually did have a toy with uranium.
Yes, Super PZL, that is correct. They add your own nuclear reactor, make your own Chernobyl set.
Yep, Gilbert had it in the 50s. It had a little piece of U-235 in it.
Because nothing
How
ever
it
went
never
wrong.
made it out into the market is beyond me.
I'm sure sitting around going, "Hey, let's create a new set. What's a good idea? What's real popular? Well, nuclear energy is real good right now, blowing things. Oh yeah, let's make a set and put some real 235 in there. Yeah, what a great idea."
Let's show that damn power company we don't need any wires.
The kids can make their own.
Who needs a flashlight, kid? You just smile, your teeth will glow in the dark when your bones absorb all that radiation.
What about when you just go into a store and just buy a knife?
Oh yeah. Oh
yeah.
I had a chemistry set when I was 10.
Yeah, me too. And a microscope.
Yeah, a couple of the chemicals were labeled very hazardous. Must handle with care.
That whole sulfuric acid thing.
Yeah. Today you'd need a hazmat suit to handle them, but then it was like, no, it's no problem.
Yeah, no big deal.
Hydrochloric acid. What does this taste like?
Throw up.
Oh my God! I keep thinking of the melting guy in RoboCop.
Here we go. Here's Chris. Made a catapult and launched rocks at the house or whatever we could hit.
Well, yeah, along with a potato cannon and a beer can mortar and.
Do you know who the guy was who melted in RoboCop? Dredd from the '70s show.
No. He played Boddicker. He played the chief bad guy. The one that melted was one of his underlings. I think that was.
Oh, it was one of his henchmen.
Yeah, and is a known actor now, and I know his face and I can't remember his name. But I think he was the guy who played Pete Conrad in From the Earth to the Moon, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, and we convinced this kid to build a VW, and now he's looking at 3 airfix, get a slippery slope. We've lured another one in.
You reeled him in.
I remember when we were kids, we used to play war, and we go running through the neighborhood. A bunch of us kids carrying these fake guns. You did that now, the SWAT team would show up.
I'll tell you what, Super PZL, send me your address at maxsmodels@yahoo.com, and I'll send him a model. And glue together, and
with glue.
Provided you're not in some place that's going to cost me $100 to send it. But I had a fella ask me a while back if I had a box for, I think it was the Twin Otter after I'd done the bill, and I said yeah, and I forget, he was like Madagascar or somewhere, and he says, "Could you just send me the box?" And I was like, "Sure." So I sent it to the postal service. Charged me like $13. So I was like, it's a empty box.
That's all?
It went into a little flat, because I flattened it, but I was like, I mean, I don't mind. You guys have been so generous to me. I'm not squawking about that. I'm just like, I can't believe how expensive it is to ship stuff. I mean,
I sent a box of kits out to Mike Machat.
Mm-hmm.
It was $92.
Oh!
Well, by the way, I got an email from the company that since I'm nearing the end of my training, I only have these last few days to do, that I was eligible to bid for April. So I'm bidding, of course I get my medical renewed this month, hopefully. My agent's always, willy won't but assuming everything goes fine, next month I should have a couple of California overnights, so Mike and I can get together and do something from there. I hope, and maybe a live stream.
And it sounds like a road trip,
and that would be kind of fun. I'm looking forward to. Thing is, it'll probably like we did in Desertland, just me and the iPad going straight up live. So just depending on how good the internet connection is, but so I went to Denver. First time I ever landed an airplane in Denver, and I'm like, man, they got all 12,000 foot runways and 16,000 foot runways. Like, this is great. And like, cause that's the airport's called Mile High. It's called Mile High Stadium for a reason. You're landing at 5,800 feet, dumbass. And I was like, wow, you really come in here. You're looking at, you're coming down through 10,000 feet and you're like, wow, the cars are big. And you land and you're like, yeah, this is no problem. Boy, are we going too fast? And
you didn't go to the old airport.
Oh, Stapleton? Yeah.
Because when they'd send you around because it was snowing too bad to land, all you'd keep saying is, there's mountains here. I hope they see them.
Ray Wyatt just brought up an interesting memory. Remember back when we were kids, they had those tennis ball cannons?
Oh, God, yes.
You remember those?
Ken, we made them.
I know. My brother did, too. You know what I'm talking about, Steve?
Use a little hairspray or lighter fluid and light it up. Boom!
Yeah. You get 2-3 cans from with the tennis ball size ones.
Well, we would use PVC pipe, but
and you get a can opener and you open a whole bunch of holes in the bottom can, and then you squirt some lighter fluid or ether or whatever was handy that was highly flammable, and then just hold a match down. You put a tennis ball in there and you hold a match underneath it, and that thing go boom, see flames shooting out of both ends. Oh, that was a blast playing with that thing.
Yes, we saw the big blue flame. That's like when I was in the Army. Every time we finished off a bottle of hard liquor, we'd bury the soldier, strike a match, and drop it in, you see that blue flame come out of the last stuff,
Meanwhile, John Ashley says they made pipe bombs with match heads and copper pipes with the skills I learned in shop.
So who didn't?
Somehow we've managed to survive.
Meanwhile, I think Tom is referring to the big horse outside the airport.
Oh no, I didn't get off the airplane. Captain did the walk around. It was a real quick turn. 4 hour and 23 minute flight over there because of the headwinds. 3 hours coming back, and so we got in a little late. So we were racing to get everything done. I literally never got off the airplane. Although, day after tomorrow when I go to Denver, I actually am supposed to get staying at the hotel. So if I can, I'm going to grab a ride over to Colpar Hobbies and check it out and maybe do a video on it or something if I can get over there.
The good news is that when you ride from the airport to the hotel, you can nap.
Yeah, I imagine it's going to be a hike, isn't it?
Yeah,
I did notice what you said, Steve. The airport's nice. It's spread out, big runways, a gigantic terminal, and it is out in the middle of nowhere. Find a map of nowhere, and that airport's right in the middle of it.
When they proposed building that airport, and where they put it, everybody said, it's not in Denver, that's the Kansas Plains.
Is it actually on the Kansas side of the line?
No, but it's so far out of town, that's what they used to say.
Okay.
But, hey, Max?
Huh?
And aside here, Super PZL wants you to say that email address again. His hearing's not so great.
Let me type it for him. I'll type it in here.
Oh, yeah. Shop class. We all had shop class. Even my teacher was missing a finger.
Was that shop class or chop class? Yeah, the one in Aurora. I found out there are two of them.
Gary.
There's two Colpar Hobbies, I think, now. But we're talking about the one in Aurora. If I got my addresses right, it's less than 10 miles from the hotel. But looping back to what we were talking about earlier, I really think we just grew up in this fantastic time. Cool toys, a lot of freedom, and it now. Don't get me wrong, though. A lot of the stuff I was going to say, like the old sci-fi matinees, but think about it. Today, kids still have some pretty cool sci-fi. I mean, you got Mandalorian and all these Star Trek, Strange New Worlds, and all these, and there's still a lot of sci-fi out there, and a lot of fantasy and wizardry. So, and it's a lot slicker than the stuff we had, which is both kind of nice, but in a way, sometimes a little bit of the cheese was half of what made what we watched so much fun. Although that Radar Men from the Moon and Commander Cody and stuff, I still, the first time I saw those, and as a kid, I was like, I know this was made in the 50s. How are these special effects so good? So, sometimes these guys really made a Class A effort. But wondering how they did it was what occupied me as much as anything as the story itself.
Well, if you follow the Radar Men from the Moon, which were the Lydecker brothers, they were like the masters of miniaturization.
Yep, that's right. The Lydecker brothers and their wire system and everything.
They would make these elaborate, sets and blow them up, and for the most part, they looked fairly, reasonable that you would believe that was real.
There is a famous, and they did it more than once, plane crash scene from one of their old war movies, where they're using their Lydecker technology where they're running the model down wires, but they're also pulling it with a wire. So as the plane crashes and the wings come off and it bursts into flames, it just keeps going like a real plane crash.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is actually pretty convincing. And they, even as late as 1941, the P-40 and the Beech 18 flying around L.A., that was all Lydecker.
Hey, Max.
Huh?
Jerry Parker would like to know what time. He said he'd like to meet you.
I don't know. I think we get in about noon or 1 there, Colorado time. And assuming I don't have to take a nap or anything, I'll probably go get changed and try to make it over that afternoon to Colpar, the one in Aurora. So I would guess I'd be there around 2 o'clock. And this assumes the flight goes on time, we don't cancel, and daddy this and daddy that and everything else. But I would say spitball about 2 o'clock, 2 to 3.
Be careful of Gary because he says, I'd love to you, Max.
We don't do that anymore.
I was going to leave that part out.
We're married now. So I'm guessing 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Colorado time would probably be, and given the time difference.
He's asking Sunday.
Today's Friday, Saturday. Yeah, I guess it will be Sunday. But I hope they're open Sunday. I didn't bother to check. A hobby shop has to be open on Sunday. I think that's the law.
Okay.
Hold on a moment. Let me just look it up. Colpar Hobbies. Aurora. Okay, there it is. Hobbytown Aurora, Denver Metro Store. Colpar's Hobbytown Aurora. 1915 South Havana Street, Aurora, Colorado. And let's see, store hours.
A glove puppet?
Yep, they're open from 10 to 6 on Sunday.
And they are religious about that 6 o'clock closing time.
Okay, good to know.
Trust me.
Well, let me just look at something real quick then to see. Let's see. Now, of course, I'm making a lot of assumptions, as I mentioned, that, everything's going to run on time. We're not going to cancel or get diverted or get robbed to go do another flight.
Converted?
Yeah,
an Airbus?
It can. Okay, we're supposed to land at 12:35 if we're on time. That's Colorado time. So figure half hour to post-light the plane, get out to catch the van 1 o'clock, an hour to get to the hotel 2 o'clock. Yeah, I don't see me being there before 3 o'clock. So
yeah, you won't be to the hotel before 2.
So I won't be at the hobby shop before 3 probably, because I know I'll have to get something to eat because I'll be hangry and Boy, I tell you what, you do not want to be around me when I haven't eaten. But,
Don't get in the way of the fork. Do not become between him and the fork. That's dangerous.
So, yeah, and then, and 9, 8, yeah, we're up pretty early, fairly early up the next morning. Not terribly early. I mean, should we get a good night's sleep? But then the next day we go LaGuardia, Tampa, and then the last thing is Tuesday morning is the Tampa to JFK should be my line check. Then I deadhead home. So hopefully Tuesday night I'll be all done with the training, and they'll get me on the schedule where I can start,
Going to some cool places.
Bill, not only that, so I can start bidding some time, start working on my consolidation. But because even after the training's over, you got to get 100 hours. I think you have, I forget, it's 3 months or 6 months. I think it's 6 months to get 100 hours to get what they call consolidated. Because I'll be flying under a few limitations, like crosswind limitations and stuff. Until then, just because, they want you to, basically learn the airplane. And that's a good idea because although everything's kind of coming together now, you still, it takes a while to get comfortable in something that big. And
still need the training wheels, huh?
Basically.
Hey Ken, doesn't it make you feel good that they still learn the plane while they're flying it? With you in it?
Planes fly, all the same, pretty much. It's just the little detail stuff. It's
like landing.
You need to learn you know what you need to do? You need to go down to your local airport and take some a beginner lesson to learn to fly.
I've got news for you. I've spent so much time in the back of the plane. It probably wouldn't be that tough.
You should do it. You find out just how much fun it is to fly.
Yes. Like Harry Chapin, I fly so high in my car.
Flying in my taxi, getting tips and getting stoned.
Yeah, not quite the same thing.
How do you okay, I have a stupid question to ask. How do you respond to a particular comment? Like this is somebody goes on a right
click.
Put
their name in front of it.
Huh?
Just put their name in front of it.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, put their name and then what you want to say. So
right.
They know it's to them.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing Colpars because I've heard great things about it. But one of the things, though, is that, Steve and I have talked about this before, is that when we were kids, models were aimed at kids, but now models are mostly aimed at adults. And although we live in the second golden era of models because, the 60s is when it was huge, but now, even though it's not big like it used to be, we have more stuff available to us than we've ever had before. And it's staggering the quality of the models we can buy these days. Yet a lot of us, like myself, still love the old stuff, partly for nostalgia and partly for the challenge. Raised red.
Well, see, we have the benefit of the best of both worlds.
We do.
You have all the repop stuff, which we remember from when they were new, and we want to build them again, and then all the new stuff that everybody's come out with that are, more current, topics.
Also,
so we really have a plethora of choices.
Some stuff is overmade. I mean, everybody out there has made the Mustang the Zero, which is great to have options. I did a comparison video a couple of years ago of the Tamiya versus the Revell 148 scale P51s. And Revell had really closed the gap on Tamiya, and Tamiya cost twice as much. And, my general conclusion was, if you're a master modeler, and you can probably take some advantage in Tamiya's, the little bit of the advantage it has in quality and everything. But if you're just somebody buying a model kit for his kid or something, by all means, just get the monogram kit or the Revell kit, which was the 1997 monogram mold. And was leaps and bounds above the ones I built in the 70s. But I'm like, you might as well just get that because, they've really closed the gap on a lot of the stuff. And Tamiya, God bless them, when they have an old mold that they made their money on, like the Walker Bulldog, yeah, that's a $20 model. But when they come up with something new, and Hasegawa is the same way. Wanting $50 for a 1/72nd scale World War II fighter plane, I'm sorry, man. That's just, I'm surprised they move any styrene at all at those prices, but they do. But, and a lot of these, huh?
No, go ahead.
I was going to say also that I completely lost my train of thought. I was looking at a comment. It says somebody said that Sully Sullenberger's landing would qualify as great. I'm like, I'm sorry, was that a landing or a watering? Because I don't remember any land being involved. Says the guy who's about to fly an Airbus out of JFK. Ooh, watch the karma. Watch the karma boomerang.
Did they total that plane, or did they put it back
it's
in
in a
service?
museum in Charlotte right now. They fished it out and put it in a museum in Charlotte, North Carolina. The North Carolina Aviation Hall. If you watch the movie Sully, at the end, you see a bunch of the people. They're in the museum with it, and the crew did a great job. And God,
it didn't sink.
No, it didn't sink for a couple of hours. It finally sank, but they didn't have much trouble recovering it. They knew where it was.
It's not that deep there.
But one of the things that I really appreciated about that wasn't just Sully's airmanship, but was also, and the crew did a great job getting everybody out, but it's also that, the ferry boat captain saw him splash, and everybody was, there were boats on the spot before the wake had settled. Everybody pulled together. And the fact that no one was killed or even seriously injured, it truly was a miracle on the Hudson, because normally water landings do not go that well. And it was and also helped that Tom Hanks is a pilot, so he knew how to portray the character.
Didn't they forget to close
the ditching button? It's the ditching button. Now, I couldn't have told you what that did a couple of months ago, but I know now. It closes the outflow valves, the ram air valve, and a couple of the valves that are below the water line. And if they had, but the checklist, it's so far down the checklist, they didn't have time, because these checklists for something like that with the drift down and everything can be pretty long, because they figure at altitude and have some time. If they had hit the button, the plane might have floated a little longer, but it was still going to sink. But like you say, it floated long enough for everybody to get out. So, that's not anything anybody was going to criticize them for. What I didn't like about the movie, and I don't even think Sully liked it, was that the FAA was never that accusatory or antagonistic towards him. But as Eastwood pointed out, because the one thing Clint Eastwood knows how to do, it's make a movie. And they have to have an antagonist. The geese aren't going to get it. They were killed. And everybody loves to pick on a federal bureaucracy, so they just made it easy to, to portray them in that light. But in reality, I don't think they were like that at all. One thing I did like that was a nice touch was, as soon as he went in the water, in the air traffic control, the supervisor walks up, puts his hand on the controller's shoulder, goes, "Okay, step away from your post. You know the drill. Blood and urine." Anything like that happen, you're getting drug tested. And which I don't know.
He could have walked up and said, "Sorry about that, guy." Show some sympathy first.
But you know what, though? I'd rather, fly in an environment where people are kept, or in important position safety, where they are kept on a, short leash for that kind of thing, because there's no room in the industry for it. And I do not. I'll tell you something. I didn't appreciate it till I've read some incident reports from other countries, and Canada, the United States, England, Europe, they really do have a very high echelon or the training is thorough. It's effective. My instructors have all been extremely knowledgeable. I can't believe how much has been poured into my brain in the past 2 months. And
stuck.
And then you find out that in some of these other countries they don't make them do a lot of the stuff that we do, and I'm like, huh? But and oversight. Well, it's like that thing. I haven't read you guys that thing in Boston that apparently the report I heard was that the Learjet took off without clearance, and so somebody's in hot water. And the thing is, that happened to me going into Santo Domingo, and of course this gets back to other countries having lower standards. I'm in the Dominican Republic. I'm landing in Santo Domingo at night. Fortunately, it was clearing a million, and we're 4 miles out on final, gear down. They're all configured, just waiting to get to the runway. And this Mexican Learjet, the guy speaking to and of course the native language of the Dominican Republic is Spanish, but the ICAO rules require that everyone speak English in aviation. And the Mexican guy is chattering in Spanish, and he just goes, okay, Learjet for takeoff. And I clearly hear the young Dominican controller tell him, hold short of the runway, landing traffic. And the guy goes, okay, taking off. And he gets on the runway and just goes.
That was probably because the cartel was late for a delivery.
I put nothing past him. But the controller, we were still probably half mile off the end of the runway when the Learjet lifted off. And of course, needless to say, if I had missiles on that thing, I'd have taken the shot. But I was not happy. But the controller completely locked up. He was a young kid. You could tell by his voice. He wasn't sure what to do. I don't think he'd ever had anybody just flat out disobey an instruction like that. And I just keyed the mic, said, yada yada, 1 2 3 4. We have the departing traffic. He's gone. It's okay. We're okay to land. He goes, okay, clear land. We got off the run. Thank you, sir. I'm like, no worries. I do recommend you find out who that guy was. You're gonna have to do report on that. And that was that. No harm, no foul. But
he must be a pretty good controller, or he wouldn't have been on final approach.
That isn't how it works in the DR, Ken. That isn't how it works in a lot of countries. A lot of places.
I thought the senior guys they put on approach control.
Yeah, that's in America.
Oh, okay.
This wasn't approach. This is the tower operator. That's tower. Approach is further out. Approach gets you to the airport. Tower gets you to the asphalt. Ground gets you to the gate. And
okay. All right.
But
I've flown in any foreign countries, so I didn't know.
Well, that's the way it works in most places. But the thing is that in a lot of these countries, it's nepotism and that sort of thing. It's actually kind of a serious problem. And every time the government has some parties change, all of a sudden you got new controllers. Have you ever had
ATC make mistakes?
Everybody's had ATC make mistakes. They're humans too, and and some of the mistakes. Although it's not as bad in the U.S., I've had them make mistakes in the U.S. and I've made mistakes. One of them a while back. Boy, I had to do some paperwork on this. And this is one of those things you can't make it up. We're on one. I think we're in Lauderdale or West Palm. And I think it was West Palm. It was West Palm because the general aviation traffic was on the far side of the runway, and we're on the commercial side. So we're both facing the end of the runway, right? They say, "Okay, I'll line up and wait." And I get on the runway. I read it back and line up and wait. Turns out this guy's in number was the exact same number as our flight number.
Ooh! Oh wow!
And so it's like 1186, position to hold. Okay, yeah, 1186. And he was November 1186. I was like, I think there's a mistake. And I was like, what should I do? Well, take off. We got somebody on final. Okay, you take. I was like, and we figured it out about that time. And so, take. And, the feds were cool about it. Hey, look, that was obvious. It was pretty obvious what happened. It was one of those weird things. You reported it. You obeyed the controller's instructions. It was an honest mistake. No one got hurt. Nothing bad happened. So things like that happen, The biggest problems, believe it or not, Super, I don't put the phone number out there anymore. That's why I use the email. So just use the email. Unfortunately, I've had some very rather serious security issues putting the phone number out on the interweb. So, and for that matter, I had a few of them with the email, but it's email. But the biggest mistake you hear on taxiing, because taxiing instructions can get so confusing, and some of these airports, the taxiways look like spaghetti. Yeah, take Double Alpha to Bravo to Echo, right turn on that, hold short Charlie 9, then Delta Echo over to Fox, and into the ramp. And I'm like, huh? Hold on, I got to sharpen my crayon.
That's when you do the. Can you hear how fast I'm a talking?
That's when the little tray table, because the Airbus has the side stick. That's when the little tray table is real nice, because the little fold-out table, because you can put your pad and pen on it and start writing this stuff down instead of trying to write it on your knee or something. And one of the things that this has been a real good experience for me, because it's an I've gotten, after 18 years on one airplane, I got pretty ossified. This has made me actually go out and make my brain work again and learn new stuff, and go into airports I'm not familiar with. So I'm actually having to aviate again, doing everything from rote memory. So it's been a challenge and a hint of a struggle, but it's good for me. It keeps my brain operational. Which for a blonde like me is, quite the chore.
Did you understand my comment about how fast I'm a talking?
Yes, it's how I also listen.
Well, that's about how fast I listen. Yes. Okay. I just wanted to make sure, because you just glossed over that.
Yeah. Well, guys, it's coming up on 9:30, which is when her show will be over. So, Ken, how many people we got watching right now?
We got 90, believe it or not, are still hanging around.
Well, God bless them all. That's sweet. Well, guys, I guess that's gonna wrap it. I'll put the video, the music and the video back up, or the thing, so you guys can chat with yourselves for a few minutes. Guys, got anything before we go? Hello?
Well, Super PZL was asking about if you ever been given a number by the FAA to call after you make a mistake.
Oh, yeah. Not words you want to hear.
Definitely not.
Okay, real quick pilot story. I've told this one before. This is when I was new at my airline. I'd probably been there. I was a captain. I was a new captain. I'd probably been there 2 years. We're going into Kennedy. And Steve, you'll appreciate this. Even within the confines of New York City, some people can tell what neighborhood you're from by your accent, because New York does not have one generic accent. And some of them, the New Yorker, the two Utes. I mean, it's genuine Uncle Vinny stuff, right? Or my cousin Vinny stuff. The two Utes, Your Honor. The two what? The two Utes. So the guy says, la la la, yeah, you're gonna have to go around where we climb the 2000 right, turn 220, and when you go into 220, go to 211. And I'm like, what? And I say, okay, I'm sorry, sir, I couldn't copy. You say that a little bit slower. Okay, climb to 2000, let's turn 220. When you go through 210, I want you to go to 223 on your speed. And I'm like, it was all twos. Like climb to 2000, left to 220. When you go through 210, speed 200. But it's all true. And I'm like, and two and true and through are all blurring. I asked him a third time, like, I am not I am not understanding. Can you? And I think I said, could you please enunciate more clearly? He finally got simplified the instructions and gave them to me. And then I got it when I didn't actually give me a number, but when I landed, the chief pilot was like, "Yeah, I've got a number. They want you to call." The supervisor at New York Air Traffic Control, and literally he just goes, "Yeah, listen to tapes." He goes. And this is, as I recall it, this is what he said. Are you making fun of my people? And I'm like, what? Sir, the way the guy spoke, the to, the through, and the true, and it all sounded like one. And I think he kind of discerned my accent, right? I was like, he was spitting it out so fast it just turned into the blur. I mean, I've been flying for over a quarter century, and I couldn't make out what he was saying. And I'm not here to make fun of anybody. And the guy was like, well, listen closer. Click.
which brings us back to the movie Murder by Death, where you're invited to have dinner at the home of Mr. Lionel Twain, who lives at 22 Twain.
Well, the thing is that, I mean, one of the guys that is, dude, as New Yorker as I am, I can't understand this guy either. He's got to be from Canarsie. But anyway. But yeah, I've once or twice in my career I've been told to call, and you ever want to get a controller's attention because he's doing something that ticks you off, and you don't use this phrase lightly, just go mark your tape. You have an event recorder, you hit it, and it's like puts a pin in it so you can get to it real quick, and it means that we're going to be talking about this later. Keep the tapes handy. And they got their world, we got ours. But just remember the famous adage: if a pilot commits pilot error, the pilot's the one that gets clobbered. If a controller commits controller error, the pilot's the one that gets clobbered.
Oh, it's the one who gets clobbered.
Yeah. So, well, all right, guys, that'll be it for tonight. I want to thank everyone for coming out, and PZL, I'll look for that for in the email for that address, and I'll pick out a nice, easy to build model for him. Give him one of the 172 World War I airplanes. Okay, kid, build that and then rig it. Ha 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 ha. But no, I would not do something so evil. What was I going to say? Go out and listen. There are a lot of JFK tapes on YouTube. And the controller, let me tell you something. The controllers at JFK are great. I don't want to make them. They're actually really, really good. Virtually all the big city controllers are. Miami's got some issues because they had a lot of turnover. But I don't want to make it sound like, given how many planes they handle a day. But the biggest problem, you'll hear it in some of the tapes, is when you usually, not always, but often it's with foreign pilots who are working in a second language. And then, you throw in, regional accents like the New York accent on top of that. And sometimes it gets really problematic. I forget it was Korean Air, which one it was. It's a fairly well-known one out there. And basically, he turned back on the runway, and the controllers are screaming at him. But there's all kinds of stuff out there. Will there be a live tomorrow? No. Tomorrow I'll be out of town. Tomorrow I'll be up in New York. I ain't skinny, I'm wiry. I'm not fat, I'm unwiry. I'm unwound. So that's it, guys. I want to thank everyone for coming out. Ken, Steve, thanks for signing on. If you guys hang on, I will flip this over to the musical outro and let everybody go. Guys, once again, as always, model on.